We are looking at a case from the early years of the 20th century, on Christmas night in 1909, beneath the ancient walls of Caernarfon Castle. A man walked calmly through fog-shrouded streets and told a stranger, "I have killed a woman down by the shore." His hands were smeared with blood. Within the hour, police would find the body of Mary Catherine Williams lying between moss-covered boulders as the tide crept steadily inward from the Menai Strait. But to understand how that night unfolded, we must go back many years, to a slate town carved by hardship. Mary Catherine Evans was born in 1875 in Penryn, a community dominated entirely by vast slate quarries that scarred the rugged landscape of Gwynedd. She was the daughter of John Evans, a quarryman, and his wife Catherine. Life in Penryn was harsh and unforgiving, the slate industry employing nearly every able-bodied man in the district. It was dangerous, exhausting work, carried out in all weather, and families, like the Evanses, depended entirely upon it for survival. In the early 1890s, tragedy struck when Mary's mother died after a brief illness. The loss brought deep uncertainty. John Evans struggled to manage alone, and after several difficult years, he decided to move his family to Caernarfon, a bustling port town on the Menai Strait, where ships carried Welsh slate to Liverpool and beyond. In 1895, he found employment as a dock laborer on Slate Quay, loading heavy stone slabs onto vessels bound for England and Ireland. The wages were modest, the hours long, but the work was steady. And in those days, steady employment meant everything. In 1897, at the age of 22, Mary Owen Hugh Williams, a docker some 19 years her senior. Owen was 41, a weathered man whose years of heavy labor along the quayside had left their mark. They settled in a small terraced house on Poole Street, in one of the poorest districts near the harbor. The air was thick with coal smoke and seaweed. Gulls cried constantly overhead. Ships' horns echoed through the narrow streets. By 1900, Mary's father and younger sister had moved in with the couple, increasing the strain on an already cramped household. Yet despite these burdens, Mary showed compassion when she adopted a 2-year-old girl named Margaret, known as Maggie, who had been abandoned at the workhouse. Money was always scarce. Mary rented rooms to sailors between voyages. She took in washing from dock laborers' families, spending long hours scrubbing and boiling clothes in a cramped kitchen. Her days began before dawn and often ended late at night, but her marriage was not a happy one. Owen drank heavily and spent much of his wages in dockside taverns. There were long periods of separation, though they never formally divorced. It was during one of these separations that Mary met Thomas David Rollins, known locally as Tom the Sailor, or sometimes English Tom. He was a hardened merchant seaman who had sailed to India, Africa, and the West Indies. After leaving the merchant navy, he drifted between ports, Caernarfon, Holyhead, Bangor. Taking casual dockside work when available, he would stay at Mary's house when in town, then disappear again for weeks or months. In early 1902, Mary gave birth to a baby boy, Thomas John. She registered her husband, Owen, as the father, a common arrangement at the time to avoid scandal and protect a child's future in a society that judged harshly. Rollins continued drifting between ports. In 1907, he joined the Royal Naval Reserve as an able seaman, gaining modest status and additional income. By then, Mary and Owen had separated permanently. She moved into a lodging house on Poolside, a rough and impoverished area near the harbor, known for narrow alleys and crumbling buildings. She worked as a street hawker, selling fish, ribbons, soap, and small household goods in the market square near the castle and in neighboring villages. Life was hard but typical of many women in North Wales at the turn of the century. As Christmas approached in 1909, Mary was living at a lodging house kept by Mrs. and Hughes. She had taken up with a docker named Evan Price. The relationship appeared casual, a matter of convenience more than devotion. Then, on December 20th, Thomas David Rollins returned to Caernarfon aboard a cargo vessel docking at Slate Quay. He sought Mary out. Over the next several days, they were seen together near the docks and along the castle walls. Neighbors noticed. Those who knew Rollins described him as jealous and volatile. Some recalled that he had previously shown Mary a rope and a folding knife, telling her she would face one or the other if she refused to leave Caernarfon with him. On Christmas evening, Mary and Rollins were drinking at the Sailor's Arms Tavern. Witnesses later said they appeared cheerful, laughing loudly. They were seen walking along the harbor front, arms linked, singing as they headed toward the quieter stretch near the old shipyard. Within an hour, Rollins appeared at the lodging house on poolside and approached a young docker named Thomas Owen. "I have killed a woman down by the shore," he told him calmly. "Go and tell the police." Owen saw blood on his hands and dark stains across his coat. Despite his disbelief, he accompanied Rollins toward the waterfront. They passed beneath the looming castle walls and walked along the uneven shore scattered with slate rubble and boulders. There, between two large moss-covered rocks, lay Mary Catherine Williams, face down. The tide was rising, water already touching her feet. Owen ran to alert the authorities. Rollins did not flee. Instead, he walked calmly along hole-in-the-wall street when Constable David Roberts approached him near the castle entrance. Rollins confessed without hesitation. He was taken into custody quietly. Inspector William Hughes later recovered the body. Fog rolled in from the Menai Strait, and the tide threatened to wash away evidence. An inquest was held on December 29th at the Guildhall in Caernarfon. Witnesses described Rollins' jealousy and previous threats. Mary's father, John Evans, frail and trembling, testified that Rollins had threatened to kill his daughter if he saw her with another man. Betsy Roberts, a fish seller, said Mary had told her about the rope and knife. Thomas Owen confirmed that Rollins had shown him a folding knife days before Christmas, saying he was going to do it for Mary Williams. Evan Price testified that Mary had lived in fear of Rollins. Rollins' confession was read aloud after women and children were asked to leave the courtroom due to his disturbing detail. He admitted arguing with Mary near the old shipyard when she refused to leave Evan Price. He grabbed her arm, drew his knife, and cut her throat after a struggle among the rocks. The jury at the inquest found him responsible and committed him for trial. The jury deliberated for only 5 minutes. Verdict: guilty of murder. A petition was raised to try and get the sentence commuted to life imprisonment. However, there was little interest in this from the local community, and the petition gathered few signatures. Thomas David Rollins was sentenced to death by hanging. A petition seeking mercy gathered little support. On February 22, 1910, at Caernarfon prison, beneath the shadow of the castle, he was executed. His reported final words were, "The sea took her from me." Mary's son was sent to Dr. Barnardo's charity. Her adopted daughter Maggie was taken in by a Quaker family in Liverpool. John Evans returned to Penryn and died in poverty just over a year later. And so this tragedy unfolded beneath one of Britain's most imposing medieval fortresses, a monument that had stood for centuries, yet could do nothing to shield those living in its shadow from jealousy, poverty, and violence. Behind every case are real lives shaped by hardship and emotion, and in the narrow Streets of Edwardian Caernarfon, the echoes of that Christmas night lingered long after the tide had washed the shore clean. The lives of Mary Catherine Williams and Thomas David Rollins stand as haunting reminders that behind every headline, every court document, and every whispered rumor, there are real human beings whose stories are far more complex than they first appear. Beneath the surface of the case lies a web of poverty that tightens like a noose, jealousy that festers in silence, and desperate choices made in moments when escape feels impossible. What unfolded was not merely a sequence of events, but a collision of fragile dreams, mounting pressures, and circumstances that seemed determined to close in from every side. Their story urges us to look beyond the cold facts and confront the unsettling truth. Sometimes, tragedy grows slowly in the shadows, nurtured by hardship and unchecked emotion, until it erupts in ways no one can undo. As always, I invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts, and leave your comments or feedback below. Your perspectives keep these conversations alive, and I look forward to exploring the next gripping story with you.